the investment risk boards keep treating as a PR problem. There's a meeting that happens inside a lot of organizations where someone from communications presents the annual sustainability report. The CFO might glance at it. The general counsel may not be in the room. The board approves it, moves on, and congratulates the team on a clean-looking document. That meeting is becoming a liability. It didn't happen overnight, but the steady pressure of regulatory change, investor behavior, and litigation trends has moved environmental accountability out of the communications function and into finance and legal. Companies that haven't made that same internal shift are carrying risk they haven't fully priced, and in many cases, haven't fully seen. When disclosure was still a storytelling exercise, for most of the last decade, corporate environmental disclosure ran largely on the honor system. Companies reported what they chose, framed it how they liked, and often got as much credit for intention as for performance. A compelling narrative could carry a weak number. That era isn't entirely over, but the window is closing faster than most boards realize. The SEC's climate disclosure rules, still fighting legal challenges in their scaled-back form, signal a clear directional shift towards standardized, auditable emissions reporting. The EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, now requires third-party assurance on sustainability data for companies with EU operations above certain thresholds. The FTC's updated Green Guides have tightened the substantiation requirements for environmental marketing claims. None of these developments individually rewrites the rules overnight. Taken together, they are reshaping what disclosure legally means and what exposure looks like when the data doesn't hold up. What investors are actually asking for now. Institutional investors have moved too. The question used to be whether a company had a sustainability program. Now it's whether the data behind that program can withstand scrutiny. Major asset managers and pension funds increasingly rely on third-party ESG data providers like MSCI, S&P Global, and Sustainalytics to score companies independently. That means investors aren't just reading your sustainability report. They're cross-referencing it against verified data, controversy flags, and methodology-driven scoring that your communications team may not fully understand, and your finance team may not be tracking at all. Shareholder proposals tied to environmental performance hit record levels in recent proxy seasons, according to data from the Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance. Many targeted specific data gaps, emissions measurement inconsistencies, absent Scope 3 disclosures, missing third-party assurance. These aren't activist fringe positions anymore. They're coming from mainstream institutional holders with fiduciary mandates of their own. For finance leadership, that's a direct implication. The quality of your environmental data is now a factor in how investors price risk in your securities. The organizational gap that creates exposure. When ESG lives in communications, it gets managed for audience and narrative. When it lives in finance and legal, it gets managed for accuracy and exposure. Those are different jobs, run by people with different training, different incentives, and different definitions of what good looks like. Companies that have kept ESG in the communications lane often find out the hard way, during due diligence, a ratings review, or active litigation, that the gap between what was said and what can actually be proven is larger than anyone realized. Greenwashing-related litigation has accelerated significantly over the past 2 years. The FTC, state attorneys general, and EU regulators have all brought or enabled enforcement actions tied to environmental claims that couldn't be substantiated. Plaintiff attorneys have been watching those same trends. Directors carry fiduciary obligations that don't stop at the edge of a sustainability report. If a board is approving environmental disclosures without understanding their legal and financial implications, and without the infrastructure to verify the underlying data, that's a governance gap. Those tend to become material at the worst possible time. What needs to shift before this gets acute? Fixing this doesn't require a wholesale restructuring, but it does require changing who owns what. Environmental data needs the same rigor as financial data. That means legal is in the room before commitments are made, not brought in to review a finished document. It means Scope 3 data, which remains the area of greatest measurement uncertainty and greatest investor scrutiny, has a defined chain of custody. And it means sustainability teams understand how rating agencies are actually scoring the company, because those scores now affect financing costs, index inclusion, and investor access in ways that show up on the balance sheet. None of that is a communications function. It never really was. The boards that recognize that now are in a better position than the ones waiting for that forces the conversation. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites by Environment and Energy Leader. For partnership opportunities, please reach out to our team.